先手必勝私が火蓋を切るよカーニバルの始まりだよ
Hey guys, Mr. Pokey here, back with another video.
Subscribe!
So this huge guide maker, Mr. Pokey, so he had to drop YouTube and drop streaming in order to serve his duty as a Singaporean citizen. And I thought it would be a good idea to impersonate him as a meme. And apparently he gets this Yanagi guide out by his mod. And he's also back from the military service, fulfilling his duty. I was like, yeah, even though it's not the best timing, but I will just rodeo with this meme for the passion of it. So in Singapore, every citizen has to serve military, just like Taiwan, my hometown. So you could expect a lot of average Joe serving along with Mr. Pokey. And God bless those whoever in the same unit with the Mr. Pokey to not get traumatized by his size, because he's massive. And talking about massive, we gotta talk about Yanagi and her damage. So I've been learning Japanese for a pretty long time, about 3.5 years. And naturally, I'm gonna be aware of the JP side of guide and Zenless Zone Zero community. And if you take a good look at my thumbnail, it's actually JP analysis, not CN analysis. And apparently in their community, they consider that the Thunder Metal set is better than Chaos Jazz set, even in the Disorder team. So if you take a look at the Game 8 website, they recommend Thunder Metal over Chaos Jazz in pretty much any scenario. And this huge channel, the Soulman channel, is also recommending the Thunder Metal over Chaos Jazz. And this hardcore Zenless Zone Zero channel also recommends Thunder Metal. And I think that somehow breaks the sentiment that Chaos Jazz is better than Thunder Metal in the Disorder setting, which is a pretty prevalent idea in the EN side. But in Japan, they're recommending Thunder Metal as if it's common sense. And the reason behind that is simply because you could realistically get more buff from the Thunder Metal set than the Chaos Jazz set, which you can get only 5 seconds amounts of buff. But you could also argue that you could quick swap to get the buff, which is also a completely valid point. And as for Thunder Metal set supporter, you could keep Electro Anomaly up all the time if you are able to manage the Disorder, because the time you lose from swapping could have just dealt the damage directly, which is actually harder to min-max than keeping the shock up all the time, which is also valid. So that's why we need the test. So I make a test between these two sets for like 30 to 40 times on each set. So I use the typical M6 Lucy and the Bernice, because I'm an idiot who skips Caesar. And the result is Thunder Metal set get 57 seconds and Chaos Jazz got 58. The differences might look subtle, but I do get less consistent time on Chaos Jazz, and Thunder Metal set has better time. If you were average out all my tests, I could say it wholeheartedly that Thunder Metal set is definitely better, but not by a huge extent. So no, you don't need to throw your Chaos Jazz set into the garbage if you have good stat. But the other reason I would recommend Thunder Metal set over Chaos Jazz is because of the flexibility of it. It could use in the Disorder team comp, and it could also use in the Mono Electrics team. And I think that flexibility alone makes it worth using than the Chaos Jazz, because you're gonna use significantly more amounts of resource to build another set just for different team comps. Another interesting concept about the Yanagi, it is common sense that you should always go for the Anomaly Mastery in the 6 pieces. But once your Yanagi got the signature Vengeance, the slot number 6 become more flexible, because you literally has the same amounts of Anomaly built up without the slot number 6 with the signature weapon. You could use attack percentage for the boss, and even better for the Mono Electrics team, because 2 electrics Anomalies stacked on tops of each other would lose a lot of damage. And the other interesting stat is the energy regen, which could enable burst Yanagi, because you could let the stun unit stun the enemy first, then you can keep bursting the enemy with the whole skill in the Chingy Rina team comp, which I will make videos about it, along with physical Yanagi. Just stay tuned. And the other W engine that is worth mentioning is the Gemini, which is a free-to-play option for Yanagi and any anomaly characters. It is definitely solid in the boss scenario. It actually outperformed Fusion Compiler in the test that I'm going to show you guys, but I do think that Gemini is better than Fusion Compiler in the boss scenario where enemy has a loss of HP, while I could see Fusion Compiler is better in the multi-wave scenario. So I think that's about it on the characters building. So what am I gonna show next is breaking down how I play Yanagi in the Shiyu defense. So I will just quickly go over my Chaos Jazz set and my Thunder set. The substat in the Thunder Metal set is actually a bit better, but that's the closest stat I could get. One of the tips that is super important is that the defensive assist or parrying is actually very important in terms of building up your ult. It generates about 200 decibel, which is almost 10%. You could simply build up your ult much faster from just parrying more often in your rotation. There are so many times that I'm doing these speed run. All I miss is an extra parry to get that ultimate up for a second or two early. It doesn't only just charge you out, it also builds dazes on the enemy. It is the most simple and obvious technique that you should use it more often that is undermined by the community. So as you can see, I use a lot of parry and counter it to build up tons of daze and the impacts. And by the way, my Lucy's main stat on the disc number 6 is impact to get the stun up earlier. And boy, I gotta say that the Gemini is absolutely crazy on Yanagi. I mean, just look at how fast I build up the stack for the Gemini. And definitely use your ult to set up for the disorder. If enemy is burning, use Yanagi's ult. If then use Bunny's ult. And I use Bunny's ult here. So as you can see, I got 58 seconds. But just keep in mind that this is one of the Outlander I got from the Chaos Jazz set, because I don't really get consistent time as much as what Thunder Metal would do. So as you can see, I quickly trigger the burn and normally with Bunny's, because Yanagi's polarized disorder damage is based off Bunny's and normally damage. And the second polarized disorder damage is actually based off Yanagi's herself. As you can see, the enemy is in shock. The point is Yanagi's whole skill, the polarized disorder, doesn't work if enemy is not in the state of anomaly. So as you can see, my Lucy is holding her skill while anticipating for enemy to attack and switch to Bunny's. I also have Yanagi to use her hold skill while swapping to Lucy to pre-buff for the disorder damage. And you're gonna see it when I use her out. And that would save me a lot of time in this scenario. And I really do think this is actually massive, that it's worth practicing. And you can see I procs burn and shock almost simultaneously here, which doesn't really increase the disorder damage like what everybody claimed to be, which I'm gonna make another videos about it with all the tests. But I did take the pre-buff that I did it earlier, and that would increase a respectable amount of disorder damage. The other tip for playing the anomaly team in general, to keep up with the consistent disorder damage, is that you should keep building up the anomaly for like about 50% after you apply the anomaly. Like if your Bunny's burn the enemy, you should keep building up the anomaly until like 50% before you switch off to Yanagi or Jane though. And then when Yanagi procs the shock, you should keep hitting it until it reaches another 50%. Your life is going to be so much easier playing this way. And so right here enemy is burning, so I decide to use Yanagi's ult to proc the disorder and finish it off with the hold skill. And I got 57 seconds here. So yeah, the summary is pretty simple. The Thunder Metal 4 set performance is negligible in Disorder team when compared with the Chaos Jazz set. So if you haven't grinded a dedicated gear for the Yanagi yet, you better start grinding for the Thunder Metal 4 set. But if you have a decent Chaos Jazz set, you don't need to swap it at all. Actually, I couldn't figure out why this particular Chaos Jazz run was performing this well. Even though I rewatch it over and over, I still couldn't figure out why. So I would just keep the video running here if you are interested to watch the whole run. But I do think that the differences is actually negligible. And if you happen to figure it out, leave it in the comment And yeah, maybe consider like and sub.
突っ込んでなさい。先手必勝。心身一如